imagine your family telling the world you're a failure. For years, I let them believe it. Their words stung, heavy with doubt, branding me as the daughter who couldn't measure up. I carried that weight silently, my voice trembling under its burden. I'm Emma Carter, and behind their pity, I built a life they couldn't see. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving in shadows they never looked for. My truth stayed hidden, locked away, until one moment tore it open. A single sentence would unravel everything, exposing a secret I'd guarded for over a decade. I'm Emma Carter, 32, a general in the U.S. Army, one of the youngest women to reach this rank. But my family? They thought I was a failure, stuck in some dead-end desk job, too fragile for the military's weight. For 15 years, I kept my achievements secret, my West Point triumphs, my special operations missions, the lives I helped save. Why? Because every time I shared, their dismissal cut deeper than any wound. You'll wash out, my father said. Choose a normal life, my mother pleaded. So I stopped trying to prove myself to them. I built my own path, one they couldn't diminish. My silence wasn't weakness, it was strength, a shield for a career that reshaped history. But at my sister Lauren's Air Force promotion, everything changed. A commander I'd worked with, Colonel James Harrison, saw me in the crowd. His voice carried across the room, clear and unshakable, "Ma'am, you're the general." In that moment, my two worlds collided. The truth I'd buried burst free, and my family's carefully crafted story of my failure shattered. I wasn't ready for it, but there was no going back. Stick with me for 40 minutes to hear how I proved them wrong, not for their approval, but for myself. If you've ever been underestimated, felt your worth questioned, this story is for you. I'm Emma Carter, and I'm sharing my journey to show what's possible when you believe in yourself. Hit subscribe, join me on this ride, and let's uncover the power of owning your truth. Follow me on X for behind the scenes and share your own story in the comments. Have you ever had to rise above doubt? Let's inspire each other, because your path is yours alone. I grew up in a small Connecticut town, where the Carter name meant something. My father, a retired Army colonel, wore his service like a badge of honor. My grandfather, a Navy captain, had stories of storms and battles that filled our home with pride. My brother David, a Marine major, carried the torch forward. But that pride? It was reserved for the men. Women, in the Carter family, were meant to support, not serve. From as early as I can remember, I didn't fit that mold. At 10, I'd sneak into my father's study, poring over military strategy books, tracing battle maps with my fingers, lost in a world of tactics and courage. Those pages felt alive, whispering possibilities I couldn't ignore. But when my father caught me, his laugh cut deep. "These are for serious men, Emma," he said. "Help your mom in the kitchen." His words weren't cruel, just certain, like he was stating a law of nature. I'd slip back to my room, the books weighed heavy in my heart, but their lessons burned brighter. That study became my secret sanctuary, where I dreamed of a life bigger than the one they planned for me. My family's legacy was a towering wall, impressive, but built to keep me out. Their pride excluded me, not because I lacked potential, but because I was a daughter, not a son. Yet, those moments alone with those books planted a seed. I wasn't just Emma Carter, the girl who didn't belong. I was someone who could rewrite the rules, even if no one else believed it yet. My dreams didn't align with the Carter family script. By high school, I was leading my JROTC team, calling commands with a voice that surprised even me. I aced every drill, memorized military history, and won leadership awards that made my teachers beam. But at home, those achievements were invisible. My father would nod politely, then turn the conversation to David's latest Marine deployment. My mother would smile, saying, "That's nice, Emma, but don't you want to focus on something softer?" Their dismissal wasn't loud, it was quiet, constant, like a tide wearing down stone. At 15, I hid a JROTC medal in my drawer, its weight a secret I couldn't share. Why bother? They'd laugh or change the subject. My brother teased me endlessly. Emma, you cried at a war movie once. Military life? Not your thing. My sister Lauren, younger by 2 years, stayed silent, her eyes watching but never speaking up. Their doubts piled up, each one a brick in a wall I couldn't climb. Yet, I kept pushing, running extra miles, studying late into the night. I wasn't just chasing grades, I was chasing a chance to prove I belonged. The world outside our small town saw me, teachers, coaches, even strangers at competitions. But my family? They saw a girl playing at something too big for her. Their narrative was set, Carter men fought, Carter women cheered. Every time I tried to share my passion, their looks said it all, amusement, pity, disbelief. I learned early that my dreams were mine alone to protect. And protect them I did, hiding my fire behind a quiet smile, knowing one day I'd show them what I could become. At 17, my chance came. A letter from West Point arrived, its seal gleaming like a beacon. I'd worked for it, endless nights studying, training until my muscles screamed, building a record that couldn't be ignored. I was accepted, one of the few women in my class. At dinner, I shared the news, my heart pounding with hope. Maybe now they'd see me. But my father set down his fork, his face a mix of disbelief and dismissal. You'll wash out in a month, Emma, he said. The military's no place for you. My mother reached for my hand, her voice soft but heavy. Why not a normal life, marriage, kids? Why choose something so hard? David laughed, saying I couldn't handle a weekend camping, let alone West Point. Lauren just watched, silent as always. Their words hit like a storm, but I stood firm. I'm going, I said, my voice steady despite the ache inside. That night, I celebrated alone, clutching the letter, its words my only applause. At a town barbecue, I overheard my father boasting about David's Marine career, not mentioning my acceptance. The sting was sharp, but it fueled me. I wasn't defying them for their approval, I was defying their limits for myself. West Point wasn't just a school, it was my chance to rewrite the Carter legacy. I'd prove I could stand among the best, not as a woman playing a man's game, but as a leader who earned her place. Their doubts couldn't stop me. They only made my resolve harder, like steel forged in fire. I was ready to step into a world they couldn't imagine, carrying dreams they refused to see. That summer before West Point was heavy with tension. My father barely spoke, treating my decision like a childish rebellion he'd soon be proven right about. My mother packed my things with a sadness that felt like she was sending me to my doom. David's teasing calls home were relentless, each jab a reminder of their disbelief. Lauren's silence was the loudest, her quiet glances neither support nor rejection. The night before I left, my father said, "There's no shame in coming home when you realize it's not for you. Not if, but when." His certainty burned, but it lit something inside me. I nodded politely, but in my heart, I made a vow, I'd never come home defeated. I'd rather not come back at all. The next morning, as my family drove me to the bus station, not West Point, too far for them to bother, I felt the weight of their expectations. As the bus pulled away, I saw them through the rear window, my father's face set in disappointment, my mother wiping tears, David checking his watch. Lauren raised a hand, maybe a flicker of support, but it was too late. I was done looking back. Alone in my seat, I whispered a promise to myself, I'd earn my place, not for their pride, but for my own. I didn't know how lonely that path would be, how each step would test me, but I knew it was mine. That vow became my anchor, a quiet fire that would carry me through years of doubt, struggle, and triumph. The Carter legacy might not have room for me, but I'd build my own, one that no one could dismiss. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to fight for it. West Point hit me like a storm I wasn't sure I could weather. From the moment I stepped onto that campus, the world I'd dreamed of as a child felt like a crucible. The drills were relentless, sprints at dawn, push-ups until my arms screamed, shouted commands that echoed in my skull. Every day tested my body, my mind, my resolve. I'd lie awake at night, wondering if my father was right, maybe I didn't belong here. The weight of his words, "You'll wash out in a month," clung to me like damp wool. My classmates, mostly men, cast sidelong glances, some curious, others skeptical. Whispers followed me, "She won't last." I felt their eyes, judging every step, every mistake. But I wasn't just fighting the drills or the doubts of strangers. I was fighting a deeper fear, that I'd prove my family right. Yet, something inside me refused to break. I'd think of those nights in my father's study, tracing battle maps, dreaming of a life where I could lead. That dream was my anchor. Then came Captain Sarah Mitchell, a no-nonsense officer with eyes that saw through my insecurities. One day, after I'd fumbled a formation, she pulled me aside. "Carter," she said, "you're tougher than half these cadets. Stop doubting it." Her words were a lifeline, a spark in the storm. I started to see myself through her eyes, not as the girl my family dismissed, but as a leader in the making. I pushed harder, studied longer, ran faster. Each small victory built a quiet confidence. West Point wasn't just training me to be a soldier, it was forging me into someone who could carry her own weight, no matter who doubted her. The storm raged on, but I was learning to stand firm, to find my place in a world that didn't expect me to succeed. In my second year, the storm turned brutal. During a night training exercise, I misstepped on a rocky slope, and my leg buckled beneath me. The pain was blinding, a white-hot spike that stole my breath. Medics carried me off the field, their faces grim. At the hospital, the diagnosis hit harder than the fall: a torn ligament, surgery required, and a long recovery ahead. The doctor's words were clinical but devastating: medical discharge is a real possibility. Lying in that sterile bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt the world closing in. My father's voice echoed, unbidden, "You won't last a week." It wasn't just my leg that hurt, it was the fear that he'd been right all along. I saw my dreams slipping away: West Point, the military, the life I'd fought for. My family's pitying faces flashed in my mind, their voices ready to say, "We told you so." For days, I spiraled, trapped in a haze of pain and doubt. I'd worked so hard, sacrificed so much, only to face this? The hospital's beeping monitors became a cruel metronome, counting down my failure. But then I remembered the books in my father's study, the battles won against impossible odds. I wasn't done fighting. I clung to that spark, refusing to let it die. My physical therapy sessions were grueling, each step a battle against my body's betrayal. I'd grit my teeth, picturing my family's dismissive looks, and pushed through. The pain was my enemy, but it was also my teacher, showing me how deep my resolve ran. I wasn't just healing my leg, I was rebuilding my belief in myself. The doctor's warning lingered, but I vowed to prove him wrong, just as I'd vowed to prove my family wrong. This injury could break my career, but it wouldn't break me. I was still Emma Carter, and I had more to give, even if no one else saw it yet. As I fought to reclaim my strength, Captain Sarah Mitchell became my compass. She didn't just see a cadet with a limp, she saw a leader who'd been tested and kept going. One afternoon, she showed up at the hospital with a stack of tactical problem sets, her voice firm but kind. "The military needs leaders who've faced adversity, Carter," she said. "That's you." Her words cut through my fog of doubt, like sunlight after a long night. She didn't coddle me, she challenged me. Those problem sets became my lifeline, forcing my mind to stay sharp while my body healed. We'd sit for hours, dissecting strategies, debating troop movements, her questions relentless but fair. "What's your next move, Carter?" she'd ask, and I'd find answers I didn't know I had. Her belief in me was a mirror, reflecting a version of myself I'd almost forgotten. She shared stories of her own struggles, sexism, setbacks, moments she nearly quit. "You don't win by being perfect," she told me. "You win by showing up, every damn day." Her faith became my strength, a quiet fire that burned brighter with each session. Physical therapy was still a grind, but I started to see progress, small steps, then bigger ones. I'd solve a problem set, then walk a little farther, each victory a brick in a new foundation. Mitchell taught me that leadership wasn't about never falling, it was about rising every time you did. She saw what my family couldn't, a woman who could reshape the military's future. By the time I returned to training, I wasn't just a cadet, I was a survivor, carrying her lessons like armor. I'd limp into formations, but my head was high, my focus razor sharp. Mitchell's mentorship didn't just save my career, it saved me from the doubts that threatened to define me. I was ready to keep climbing, not for my family's approval, but for the leader I knew I could become. After the injury, I came back stronger, not just in body but in spirit. I graduated West Point in the top 5%, a feat I'd once thought impossible. The day I stood on that stage, clutching my diploma, I felt a quiet triumph. But my family wasn't there, they thought I'd barely scraped through, if I'd even made it at all. I didn't correct them. I'd learned their approval wasn't worth the cost of their doubt. Instead, I joined Special Operations Command, a world of high-stakes missions and classified briefings. I thrived there, my strategies saving lives, my leadership earning respect. Promotions came, lieutenant, then faster than most expected. Each star on my uniform was a testament to my grit, but I kept it all from my family. When I called home, I'd dodge their questions, letting them assume I had some mundane desk job. Once, I mentioned my lieutenant promotion, hoping for a flicker of pride. My father's response was a knife, "Let's see if you make captain before we celebrate." That was the last time I shared anything real. My silence grew, not out of shame, but out of strength. I mentored a young cadet, Mia, who reminded me of myself, full of fire but weighed down by doubt. "Don't let anyone define your limits," I told her, words I wished I'd heard at her age. Helping her rise felt like healing my own past. Every mission, every late-night strategy session, I built a life my family couldn't diminish. They'd never know the villages I helped protect, the soldiers who trusted my plans. Their ignorance was my shield, protecting my heart from their dismissal. I wasn't just rising, I was soaring, in a world they'd never see. My career became a tapestry of quiet victories, woven in shadows. I was no longer the girl begging for their belief. I was Emma Carter, carving a path that would one day force the world to notice, whether my family was ready or not. My silence became more than a choice, it was my armor, forged in years of unheeded triumphs. Every mission I led, every crisis I navigated, I did it without my family's gaze. They thought I was faltering, maybe even broken, but I was reshaping history in ways they'd never grasp. I'd overhear colleagues debating women in special operations, their skepticism a familiar echo of my father's voice. "They don't belong in the field," one said. I didn't argue, I acted. The next day, I aced a strategy test that silenced their doubts, my plan outshining theirs. Those moments fueled me, proving my worth to those who mattered, my team, my superiors, myself. I didn't need my family's applause when soldiers saluted me, their trust earned through sweat and sacrifice. Yet, the silence wasn't easy. Holidays were the hardest, sitting at my parents' table, hearing David's marine stories lauded while my mother asked if I was managing okay at my little job. I'd nod, swallowing the truth, my general's stars locked away in my mind. Lauren's silence stung most, she saw my strength but never asked, as if my success threatened her own. I stopped expecting them to change. My shield wasn't just for them, it was for me, guarding my heart from their disbelief. I wasn't proving them wrong, I was rewriting what possible meant. Each promotion, each life saved, was a brick in a legacy they couldn't touch. I lived in two worlds, one where I was a leader, revered and relied upon, and another where I was Emma, the daughter who'd failed. The gap between them grew, but I didn't falter. My silence was my power, letting me soar without their weight. I knew one day the truth would break through, not because I sought it, but because it was too big to stay hidden. Until then, I'd keep climbing, my shield intact, my fire burning, ready for the moment when my worlds would finally collide. I arrived at my sister Lauren's Air Force promotion ceremony with one goal: to stay invisible. For years, I'd built a life in the shadows of my family's doubt, and I wasn't ready to step into their light. I wore a simple blue dress, no trace of my military life, hoping to slip through the day unnoticed. The base was alive with pride, officers in crisp uniforms, families beaming, the air thick with celebration. But for me, it was a minefield. My parents greeted me with their usual pitying smiles, introducing me to strangers as Emma, the daughter who tried the army but couldn't cut it. My mother leaned in, her voice soft but cutting. "She gets anxious about work, poor thing." I nodded, swallowing the truth, my general's stars buried deep inside. David, my brother, clapped me on the shoulder, joking about my office job while boasting of his Marine missions. Lauren, the star of the day, glanced my way but said nothing, her silence a familiar ache. I took my seat in the back, shrinking into myself, counting the minutes until I could leave. Their narrative was suffocating. I was the failure, the fragile one who'd crumbled under pressure. I almost believed it myself, sitting there, my hands folded tightly in my lap. The weight of their words pressed down, years of dismissal threatening to crack my resolve. I considered slipping out early, tired of playing the part they'd written for me. But something held me there, maybe pride, maybe defiance, maybe a flicker of hope that one day they'd see me. I'd spent so long hiding, protecting my heart from their disbelief, that I'd forgotten how to stand tall in their presence. Yet, as the ceremony began, I felt a quiet strength stirring, a reminder of the woman I'd become. I wasn't here to steal Lauren's moment. I was here to honor her, even if it meant enduring their pity one more time. The ceremony was in full swing when everything changed. I sat in the back, head low, trying to blend into the crowd. Then a voice cut through the hum of applause, sharp and unmistakable. Colonel James Harrison, a senior officer I'd worked with on a classified mission, stood at the podium. His eyes scanned the room and locked onto mine. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying across the hall, "you're the general." The room went still. Every head turned, searching for the woman he addressed. My heart stopped, my breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I wanted to disappear, to run from the truth I'd hidden so long. But there was no escape. Officers around me stirred, their murmurs growing as recognition spread. One approached, his voice low with respect, "General Carter, your response protocol saved my unit last year." Another chimed in, her strategy reshaped our approach in the field. Their words were a flood, washing away my carefully crafted anonymity. My family, seated rows ahead, froze. My father's head whipped around, his face a mask of disbelief. My mother's hand clutched her purse, her eyes wide. David's smirk vanished, replaced by confusion. Lauren, standing at attention, faltered, her gaze meeting mine for the first time that day. Colonel Harrison, unaware of the storm he'd unleashed, continued, praising my leadership in a mission that had saved countless lives. An officer beside him let slip a detail about a classified operation, and I deflected smoothly, my training kicking in, "Let's keep the focus on Major Carter today." But the damage was done. My two worlds, my secret life as a general and my family's fiction of my failure, had collided with a force I couldn't control. The truth was out, raw and undeniable, hanging in the air like smoke. I sat there, my hands steady now, feeling the weight of their stares. I wasn't ready for this, but the moment had chosen me, and there was no going back. The ceremony ended, but the shock lingered. My family's faces told a story of their own, disbelief etched into every line. As the crowd dispersed, my father's voice reached me, sharp and insistent. "This has to be a mistake." He said it to no one in particular, as if speaking it aloud could undo the truth. My mother's eyes darted between me and the officers still murmuring my name, her hands trembling as she whispered, "Emma, what's going on?" David stood rigid, his Marine pride faltering, unable to meet my gaze. Lauren, now a major, hovered nearby, her silence louder than ever. They couldn't see me, not the woman who'd led missions, earned stars, saved lives. They saw only their version of Emma, the failure they'd crafted over years. I remembered a Thanksgiving years ago, their pitying looks as they assumed I was struggling in some desk job. While they'd whispered about my issues, I was halfway across the world, coordinating a high-stakes operation under gunfire, my voice steady on the radio, guiding my team to safety. That mission, like so many others, was a secret I'd carried alone, its weight heavier than any metal. Now, standing in this hall, their denial stung, but it wasn't new. They'd always chosen the story that fit their world, one where Carter men shone, and I faded. My father's insistence grew louder, "She's not a general. She can't be." His voice cracked, not with anger, but with the fear of being wrong. Lauren's eyes flickered with guilt, as if she'd known deep down but chose not to ask. Their refusal to believe wasn't just about me, it was about protecting a legacy that didn't include women like me. Yet, their doubt couldn't erase the truth. I stood taller, feeling the officers' respect, their words echoing in my mind, "You saved us." My family's denial was a wall, but I'd built my life beyond it, and no amount of disbelief could pull it down now. In a private room after the ceremony, the air was thick with unspoken words. My family followed me, their faces a mix of confusion and unease. I closed the door, my heart pounding, knowing this moment had been years in the making. "You didn't want to know," I said, my voice steady but heavy. It was easier to believe I failed. My father's jaw tightened, his hands clenching as if he could fight the truth with silence. My mother's eyes welled up, her voice barely a whisper, "Emma, why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her, the ache of years rising to the surface. "I tried," I said. "Every time, you dismissed me. My West Point acceptance, my promotions, you laughed or looked away." David shifted uncomfortably, his Marine bravado gone. Lauren, standing by the window, finally spoke, her voice breaking, "I should have asked, Emma. I saw you pulling away, but I didn't push. I'm sorry." Her admission hit harder than I expected, a crack in the wall we'd both built. I remembered the countless times I'd shared my dreams, only to be met with pity or amusement. "You built a story where I didn't belong," I told them. I stopped sharing because I had to protect myself. My father's hands trembled, a rare glimpse of vulnerability. "I thought I was guiding you," he said, his voice low. I was wrong. His words were a start, but they couldn't erase the years of doubt. I looked at each of them, seeing the family I loved but no longer needed to define me. "I became a general not to prove you wrong," I said, "but to prove myself right." The room fell silent, the weight of my words settling over us. For the first time, they heard me, not the girl they'd dismissed, but the woman who'd built a legacy of her own. The past wasn't healed, but it was faced, and that was enough for now. As I left that room, I felt a shift, like stepping out of a long shadow. My head was high, my steps sure, but the weight of those years lingered, a quiet ache in my chest. I'd carried my truth alone for so long, guarding it like a flame in a storm. Now, it burned bright, impossible to hide. Outside, my husband Ethan waited, his eyes meeting mine with a warmth that anchored me. He pulled me close, whispering, "You've always been enough." His words were a balm, reminding me why I'd chosen this path, not for my family's pride, but for the life I knew I could build. The truth felt like freedom, raw and unsteady, but mine to claim. I wasn't hiding anymore. The officers' respect still echoed in my mind, their voices a chorus of validation I hadn't sought but welcomed. Colonel Harrison's words, "Ma'am, you're the general," had shattered my family's fiction, forcing them to see what I'd become. Yet, this moment wasn't about their shock or guilt. It was about me, standing fully in my power, no longer shrinking to fit their story. I thought of the missions I'd led, the soldiers who trusted me, the lives we'd saved. Those were my stars, brighter than any pin to my uniform. My family's denial couldn't dim them. As Ethan and I walked away, the base stretched out before us, a world where I belonged. Lauren's apology lingered, a fragile bridge we might one day cross. My father's trembling hands hinted at a reckoning I hadn't expected. But their journey wasn't mine to carry. I'd spent years proving myself to a family who wouldn't see. Now, I was proving myself to the world, and to me. The light I stepped into wasn't theirs to give, it was mine, earned through every silent victory, every battle fought alone. I was Emma Carter, General, and I was ready for whatever came next. A week after Lauren's ceremony, we sat around my parents' dining table, the same one where I'd endured years of their doubt. The air was heavy, not with celebration, but with the weight of truths finally spoken. For the first time, my family listened, not to their own story of me, but to mine. My father, always so sure, looked smaller somehow, his hands clasped tightly. "I was wrong, Emma," he said, his voice low, almost breaking. "Completely wrong." Those words, so simple, carried years of pain and pride. My mother reached for me, her eyes glistening, her grip fierce. "We should have seen you," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Her tears fell, and I felt the ache of her regret, a mother who'd loved me but missed me. David, my brother, sat quietly, his Marine bravado softened. "I never thought." "I didn't know," he admitted, his voice trailing off. Lauren, her major's rank still fresh, met my gaze. "I saw your strength, Emma, but I stayed silent. That was my failure." Her apology cut deep, a sister's silence louder than any words. I looked at them, my heart torn between hurt and hope. "This isn't fixed in one night," I said, my voice steady but raw. "You built a story where I failed, and I had to protect myself from it." Their apologies were genuine, but they couldn't erase the years I'd spent proving myself to a family who wouldn't see. Yet, sitting there, I felt a crack in the wall between us. They were trying, fumbling toward a truth they'd ignored too long. I didn't need their regret to move forward, but their effort meant something, a fragile bridge we might one day cross. The love we shared, buried under years of misunderstanding, flickered faintly, like a candle in a storm. This wasn't the end of our story, but a beginning, a chance to rebuild on ground we'd never shared before. Months later, my family stood in a crowd at a military ceremony, their faces unfamiliar in this world of my making. I stood in my dress uniform, general stars gleaming, no longer hidden. The podium was mine, a place I'd earned through years of silent battles. As my name was called, the applause was warm, a chorus of respect from soldiers, officers, and strangers who knew my work. My father's eyes, once so dismissive, now shone with something new, pride, tinged with regret. "Congratulations, General Carter," he said afterward, his voice thick. "You honor us." Those words, once unimaginable, landed softly, like rain on parched ground. My mother hugged me tightly, her whispers of "I'm so proud," a melody I'd never heard. David saluted, his Marine discipline giving way to a brother's respect, his eyes saying what words couldn't. Lauren stood beside me, her major's rank a quiet echo of my own journey. "You've always been the strong one," she said, a smile breaking through her reserve. Their presence here, in my world, was a step toward healing, but I knew the truth. I'd learned to stand without their pride. This moment wasn't about their validation, it was about claiming my place, fully and unapologetically. The ceremony celebrated my contributions, strategies that saved lives, missions that shaped outcomes, but for me, it was more. It was a public declaration of the woman I'd become, not to prove them wrong, but to honor the girl who dreamed against all odds. My family's applause joined the crowds, but I didn't need it to feel whole. I'd built my legacy on my terms, through years of grit and grace. Their recognition was a gift, not a necessity. As I stepped off the stage, I felt the weight of their eyes, no longer pitying but awed. I was Emma Carter, General, and this honor wasn't theirs to give, it was mine to live, a light I'd carried through darkness, now shining for all to see. The world took notice after that ceremony, and suddenly, my story wasn't mine alone. A TV interview came, cameras flashing, questions probing. "What's it like being a female general?" they asked, hungry for drama. I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm, my story's about duty, not headlines. I served to protect, to lead, to make a difference. I deflected their curiosity, keeping my focus on the work, lives saved, soldiers trained, futures secured. But the attention sparked something else, a chance to give back. Inspired by Captain Sarah Mitchell, who'd seen me when I couldn't see myself, I started a mentorship program for young women in the military. I thought of Mia, the cadet I'd guided through her own doubts, now a lieutenant standing tall at my ceremony. "You showed me I could be more," she'd written, her words a mirror of my own journey. Helping her rise felt like healing the girl I'd been, the one dismissed by her family. My program grew, connecting women with mentors who believed in their fire. Each success, Mia's promotion, a cadet's first command, was a legacy I hadn't planned but cherished. The media wanted a hero, but I wanted impact, to open doors I'd had to force my way through. My family watched from a distance, their pride growing but still learning to fit this new Emma. They'd missed my climb, but they could see my purpose now. I didn't need their cheers to keep going, I had my soldiers, my ments, my mission. Yet, their tentative steps toward me, letters from my mother, a call from David, hinted at a bond we might rebuild. Leading forward wasn't just about my career, it was about showing others what's possible. I carried Mitchell's lessons, her belief that adversity forges leaders. My story wasn't over, it was a beacon for those still fighting to be seen. I was no longer silent, my voice a call to rise, for Mia, for countless others, for the girl I'd always been. Standing at the edge of this chapter, I realized success wasn't what I'd once thought. It wasn't my family's applause, though their pride now warmed me. It wasn't the stars on my uniform, though they marked battles won. It was the life I'd built on my terms, against a tide of doubt that could have drowned me. I visited Captain Sarah Mitchell's grave one quiet morning, the stone simple but heavy with her legacy. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice catching. She'd taught me to believe in myself, to rise when I fell, to lead without needing anyone's permission. Her faith had been my foundation, and now I passed it on. My family's apologies, their presence at my ceremony, were steps toward healing, but I didn't need their validation to know my worth. I'd spent years proving myself to a world that didn't see me, only to find the real victory was proving myself right. Every mission I led, every soldier I guided, every woman I mentored, they were my true stars, brighter than any rank. My father's voice, once a weight, now faded against the chorus of those who trusted me. Lauren's quiet respect, David's salute, my mother's tears, they mattered, but they weren't my measure. Success was the girl who'd read battle maps by flashlight, dreaming of a life no one believed she could have. It was the woman who'd walked through fire, not to change their minds, but to claim her own. I redefined success not by what I gained, but by what I gave, courage to Mia, hope to my ments, a path for those still climbing. My legacy wasn't the Carter name, but the lives I touched, the doors I opened. As I stood by Mitchell's grave, I felt whole, not because my family finally saw me, but because I saw myself. I was Emma Carter, General, and my success was mine to define, a light no doubt could ever dim. When others doubt you, what will you do? Will you exhaust yourself trying to change their minds, or will you forge a path true to who you are? I'm Emma Carter, and I chose the latter. For years, I carried my family's disbelief, their voices echoing that I'd fail. But I built a life beyond their limits, rising to general not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. My journey wasn't about their approval, it was about claiming my own worth. Every step, from West Point's grueling drills to leading missions that saved lives, was a choice to honor the girl who dreamed big despite their dismissal. I think of Mia, the cadet I mentored, now a lieutenant, her letter a testament to the power of belief. You showed me I could be more. Her words remind me that our paths ripple outward, touching lives we may never fully know. Your doubts, your naysayers, they don't define you. They're just noise, fading against the strength of your resolve. Choose your path, not the one others expect, but the one that lights your soul. It won't be easy, mine wasn't. There were nights I questioned everything, moments I nearly broke. But each time, I chose to keep going, to build a legacy that was mine alone. You have that power too. What will you choose when the world says you can't? Will you shrink to fit their story, or rise to write your own? My story is proof. The greatest victories come not from silencing doubters, but from listening to the voice within you that knows you're enough. This story isn't just mine, it's ours. If you've ever been underestimated, felt your worth questioned, I'm talking to you. I shared my journey, from a girl dismissed by her family to a general who redefined success, because I know you've faced your own battles. Maybe it's a parent who didn't see your potential, a boss who overlooked your talent, or even your own doubts whispering you're not enough. Whatever it is, you're not alone. Drop your story in the comments, tell me about a time you rose above doubt. How did you keep going? What drove you to prove yourself right? Your words could spark courage in someone else, just like Mia's letter did for me. Hit that subscribe button and join this community of dreamers and doers. We're here to lift each other up, to share stories that remind us what's possible. Ring the bell so you don't miss the next one, because every Tuesday, I'll bring you tales of triumph, like the single mom who became a tech mogul against all odds. Head to X and join my poll. What's your biggest barrier to success? Doubt? Fear? Something else? Let's talk about it. I'm hosting a Q&A live stream there soon, so follow me for updates. Your voice matters, and this community is stronger with you in it. Think of the people who've inspired you, now be that for someone else. Share your truth, not to change the doubters, but to light the way for those still climbing. Together, we'll build a space where every story of resilience shines, where no one's dream is too big to chase. Join me, and let's keep pushing forward, one story at a time. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I'm Emma Carter, and my story, from a girl hiding her dreams to a general claiming her place, is a reminder, your worth isn't tied to anyone's approval. You don't need permission to shine. Own your path, every step, every stumble, every victory. The world may doubt you, but you know the fire inside you. Let it burn bright. Your legacy isn't what others say, it's the lives you touch, the dreams you chase, the courage you show. Like Mia, who rose because someone believed in her, you can be that spark for others. Follow me on X for more stories that lift you up, and keep sharing yours. This channel is dedicated to those who rise despite doubt, who build their own light in the darkness. New videos drop every Tuesday, so stay with us. Your story isn't over, it's just beginning. Take that next step, not for the world, but for you. You are enough, always have been, always will be. Own your worth, and let it guide you to a life that's yours alone. Thank you for being here. Now, go write your own legacy.